into it. You know, like I don't know if you want to talk about the game Saturday, but talk about that, and then just looking ahead.
Well, we of course, kids played extremely hard. You know, last two games we've lost. Of course, has been with double overtime against Northwestern, and then within the last 2 minutes the other night, it just felt like we ran out of bodies. And both of them was kind of on the defense's back in both of those games down the stretch, and we just couldn't get it done. And I looked over to the side of me, and I saw B.J. Blunt on the side of me, and Von Burris on the side of me, Kavanas Davis, Cam Peterson, Cody Roscoe had left the game. He was on the bench, and just all those guys. I'm looking out there, and we've got some freshmen out there trying to get the job done, and it was just tough. It was tough on the latter part of the season with the injuries we started happening on the defensive side. And, offensively, we kind of sputtered all year. But we did enough in the last two games, I thought, to win the ball game. But we just didn't have enough defensive power at the end. But, the guys that were in played extremely hard, and I was very proud of them. And the team stuck together the whole time. Wasn't a lot of finger pointing going on down the stretch. It was just kind of trying to play for each other, So I was proud of them. I really was. I mean, I know we look at wins and losses all the time. And at one point, with 2 games left to go, we were still had a chance to win a conference championship. But at the end, honestly, we wasn't one of the at the end, we was not one of the better teams in the conference. When you start taking away all the players you had, at the beginning of the season, of course, we beat Nichols, who was a conference champion, who beat Incarnate Word, but we had a full football team at that time. At the end, we didn't. We had pieces of what we started with. So it is what it is, and we'll just move forward.
Does it frustrate you a little bit knowing that Lamar got in, that you might have gotten in and you win?
No, it doesn't frustrate me. It frustrates me that we didn't win, of course, but they deserved to win the other night. Their quarterbacks did a good job, and not saying we didn't deserve to win. I'm not saying that, but I won't take nothing from them. I mean, they won 6 straight games, and they were 7-4, and they're probably going to represent better in playoffs than we would because we have nobody left. We're beat up. I don't know if we get B.J. Blunt back this week. If we had won, and I always want to go into playoffs, and I know that's the standard here. But truth be told, we wasn't healthy enough to try to go and play in Northern Iowa if that's where they would have sent us and be able to come away with a win up there. If we had a full, team, I think we had a better chance, of course. So no, I'm really what they did at Lamar was really good for them. Winning 6 straight games like that.
With how many players that were on the sideline with you, like you said, does it kind of give you a little bit of excitement looking into the spring and next fall with just basically as much talent as going to be coming back from injury?
Yeah, well, I mean, I know what we're playing with. The public don't always know. They just see a McNeese football team out there and they have certain expectations. But as a coach, and you try to game plan things and you try to do things that your weaknesses and your inexperience, and you don't want to exploit that to the other teams. A lot of times people ask me who's hurt, who's the starting lineup. I don't want to give all that because I don't want people to know that, but it is what it is. The 11 we put out on the field, we got to get them believing, and I thought that we always did believe as a team that we was going to win. And it's a psyche game sometimes, but did we have our best football players healthy in the last 2-3 games? No, we didn't, but it was the best we had at the moment. So you got to make them think that they're the best players, that we can have, and that's what you do as a football coach.
Outside of the injuries, I don't know how productive it is for you to look back. And I don't know if you see a lot of productivity in looking back. But bear with the question in regards to, at a point in the season, did something come to your head that was a triggering point, maybe the teetering point of this season? Is there one thing? Is there one game? Is there one sequence?
I thought that when we came off the open date and we went to Incarnate Word, I didn't think we played well. And there was a little bit of concern there, of course. And we had to make the switch at that point, which would be the best for our offense. Not that, and I'll say it again, not that James was a problem, it's just we couldn't help him with the things that he could do, and sometimes it was matchups, and Cody gave us a spark, and I don't think we beat UCA if we'd have stayed the same, But then the Southeastern game, we didn't play well on either side. And After that, of course, we go up to Northwestern, and we still got a chance to win. So, you know, we kind of struggled offensively the whole season, but we had enough defensive guys healthy at that time to win, you know, and it's all about wins and losses. But once we started getting beat up on defense, then you're going to need to score points. And, you know, in both of those games late, I thought that we played well defensively in the first half, in both of them. And toward the ends of both of those halves, it looks like we got wore down a little bit. And whether people was getting hurt or whether it was, it's just, you know, we didn't have the same defense that we had at the beginning of the game or the beginning of the season. So it kind of took its toll on us, I think. I always thought the defense thought that they could win the game, but we just didn't have the physical bodies that we had before. And it took a toll on us.
At one point in the season, I remember you saying, look, the defense is going to carry this team. But then there came a point, and I can remember the weeks, and I'm sure you do, said, look, we've got to get some points out of the offense because the defense can't do it.
Well, we started getting banged up a little bit more and more. You know, in Cornet Word, we lost Cam Peterson at the D-line. Of course, Cavarnas Davis wasn't healthy enough to play after the BYU game. So we started losing some guys there. Livens had been suffering with that ankle injury. You know, we lost Marcus Foster for the year. So now you're starting to get depleted a little bit at the D-line. And it just kept happening. More and more guys. Maurville Bourgeois went out. Jonte was playing with a dislocated shoulder that kept going in and out. So the guy who played, there's two defensive linemen that played every game. And that was Jonte Jones and Cody Roscoe. And Jonte was playing with a shoulder that kept coming in and out of place. And then Cody got hurt last night. So every defensive lineman that started or that was dependent upon was out games. And that's just hard. I mean, if you stay healthy, then you know. Put it like this, we were 9-2 last year and we struggled offensively. But defensively, we stayed healthy. You know, we had experience, but this year we got beat up, you know, down the stretch. And when you start getting beat up, you got to start scoring points then. You know, I've seen people win Super Bowls with just defense, but you got to be lucky and you got to stay healthy, you know. So you always got to play good defense to win a championship. It helps if the offense is clicking, of course, especially when a defense goes against somebody that can't stop. It's a high-powered offense that's scoring a lot of points. And for the most part, the only probably disappointing game, probably defensively, was probably in Cornet Word. I didn't feel like we played well in that game, but I thought we played hard in the rest of them, you know, even the BYU game. But it got toward the end of the season to where playing hard wasn't good enough, you know. Not by my standards, just it wasn't good enough with the personnel we had ended up, you know, having at the end of the year. So.
B.J. Blunt today named as a finalist for Buck Buchanan, named to the East-West Shrine game. Just what do you think his whole career, this last season, just what do you think about this, everything he's meant to the program?
Well, you know, you look at him and he kind of busted on the scene this year. Of course, last year he did a lot of good things, but he wasn't the guy he is this year. He had a spring to get linebacker underneath his belt. And, you know, even in high school, he was a guy that played a DB, linebacker, wide receiver, wildcat quarterback, so he really never had a position. Of course, when he came to us, he was a non-qualifier when he first came, so he didn't get to practice. He goes to JUCO, he plays safety, he comes back to us, and I don't know what game it was, third or fourth game, we had to move him to linebacker because of injuries. So in the spring, he got all linebacker reps, fall camp, and then he has a kind of year like this, you know, so. You know, 20 tackles for loss, 11 sacks, ranks him 3rd and 5th in the nation in those two categories. Invited to East-West Shrine, up for the Buck Buchanan Award finalists, Southland Conference Player of the Week twice, National Player of the Week once, 20 tackle games. You know, I mean, guy's had an incredible year. He'll go down as one of the best linebackers in McNeese history. You know, he's definitely, I'm not going to say he's better than those guys, but when you talk about the guys that have played here at linebacker, he is definitely going to be mentioned with those guys. Anybody that watched him play, it was a pleasure to watch, I promise you. Pleasure to coach.
Coach, you mentioned going 9-2, having the offense struggle. Obviously, it struggled this year as well. What are you going to do, or what do you think you need to do in the offseason to get the offense going for next season?
It's way too early. I mean, I didn't even get to watch the game real good from this past weekend. So, I mean, I've got all Thanksgiving, I got holidays, and I don't want to do nothing drastic, whether it's change the offense, whatever. I mean, you got to kind of take a step back and look at everything and lean on some people that I have trust in and go from there. But I got to make a good decision whatever we do, and, it's too early to do any of that. It really is.
You say, do you still believe, looking at the change of college football, do you still believe defense can dominate a season, or can a defensive team only really go that far?
Yeah, I mean, you can't win in the playoffs unless you score points. You know, I still think you can win a championship by playing great defense and having an average offense. But as far as you to advance, if you look at the formula of when we've advanced, we've had offenses at McNeese, you know. You go back, and the first time we advanced was my senior year in '93. And Kerry Joseph was a sophomore, and Henry Fields and all those guys. You had Adam Henry, wide receiver. So you had a lot of guys that end up in the Hall of Fame. And then, of course, '95, we went to the semis. And all those guys I just talked about were seniors. And then '97, you had really good players on, you know, on offense and defense. And you look at the early 2000s, 2002, I mean, B.J. Sams, Jermaine Martin, Luke Lawton on offense. And we've had great defenses all those years, but you know, you've got to get really good offensive guys to go with it to make a run. You know, now we've won conference championships right here with one side of the football, whether it was offense or defense, and average on the other side. But for you to make a true run, you have to be good on both sides, you know. And I think Sam has fallen a little short recently because of the lack of defense. Now, when they went to the national championship, they had a little bit of both sides. You know, they had a really good defense and they had some players on offense, but the last two times they went to the semis, they just wasn't good enough defensively to beat a North Dakota State and people like that. So you've got to have it on both sides, and we've got to generate that. But, you know, some years are going to be better than others on one side of the ball or not. It could be recruiting. It could be injuries like what's happened, and the other side's got to pick it up. I think our success this year, because we very well could have won the last two games in one conference. And you said, Lance, how did y'all win with, you know, being stagnant at times on offense? Well, special teams and defense. But we didn't need to stay healthy defensively in order to do that. I thought special teams was really, really good this year. You know, our kickers were really good. We had good return game. We had good coverage teams. So, you know, we held on to a lot of games because of defense and special teams this year.
Is the day of the game manager quarterback gone, and do you need that kid to be the star because the ball's in his hands so many times? Because we see all these up-and-coming teams, it's the quarterback with the read option, able to throw, able to run. And is that what's needed now, basically, to stay kind of even with everybody? And do you have the person on campus?
I think if you can knock the people off the football, like North Dakota State does, Alabama, you know, which this year they're different. Alabama's got a quarterback that's mobile, but they've won national championships with a true pocket guy. LSU has won it with a true pocket guy, but everything around them has to be really good, you know. So you have to have a really good offensive line. You got to have a good run game with the tailback. You got to have dynamic guys outside. The X factor is if you're good at everywhere, not great, then that quarterback has to be able to run, and he has to have some ability to get in and out of pressure. You know, just like Lamar's guy, he wasn't a great thrower, but he was able to get away from pressure and extend plays. So to answer your question, it just depends the makeup of your team. And it's going to be very hard for us here to have a really, really, really dominant offensive line because kind of the area where we're in the country, you know, they don't have just big corn-fed guys just hanging around where nobody knows about anymore, you know. Whereas when you settle in the state of North Dakota, they got guys just, you know, in that state, or the Montanas. We don't have that here. So I think having a mobile quarterback definitely helps you, you know. And we always feel like we can get guys that can run on defense and get guys on offense, running backs, wide receivers that can run. But that quarterback that can make them good decisions and also run is tough to find. But yeah, we feel like we got some guys on campus that meet that description. So,
as far as recruiting, does the early signing, does that affect you all in any way, or are you all focused on like February, and just have you put together a recruiting plan yet, or is that still off in the way?
No, I mean we've got, you know, probably roughly around 14, 15 guys committed, and we're going to try and get them all signed in December. Some of the guys that don't sign, of course, in December are guys that are probably still looking, you know. So you're going to fight with that to the end. But the ones that are going to sign on the paper in December, we know is ours, so we're going to try and lock them up. Last year we didn't do that. This year we are, because we had a lot of guys come on campus already and meet their families and all that. It's kind of tough to sign a guy when you've never met their family before. But if you get them on campus, and that's probably been the key to our commitments this year, is they've come on unofficials over the summer to the camp and really like the culture here and what they see. So I think we'll probably end up signing 10 to 12 in December. We'll try and sign some more, of course, in February. I'm sorry.
The plan of transfers. You talk about the lack of big offensive linemen, and boy, his name escapes me. Andy from the LSU. He kind of fell on your lap. He fell on your lap with that graduating with 1 year left. But when you know you're maybe short in some spots, big offensive linemen, will you keep open to again bring in the 1 and 2 year guys?
Yeah, we've got a couple junior college guys right now that we're on. Got a commitment from one. Possibly a transfer guy from a 4-year, you know. So
offensive line,
yeah. So plus we've had injuries this year, you know, up front. At one position we lost 2-3 guys, and at the tackle we was rotating the guys because of injury. So I think once we get a little bit healthier and have some stability there, we'll be better. I mean, this spring will be a lot better than we were this fall. And then getting some extra guys in there is going to help. And then we got some young guys that are going to be good players as well. So just trying to build that back up so that we can do the things we need to do to run the football and as well as be able to protect the quarterback.
Run the football. This, you know, hammer on the nail, maybe a little unfair, but would it have been a different second half of the year and if the offensive line stayed healthier and you could have established that run game? Because it affects the time of possession. It affects the amount of time the defense stays on the field and all the ripple effect. Would it have been a different second half?
I think so. I think if you're able to run the football, it keeps the defense on the sideline a little bit longer. And, you know, when you start trying to find out why so many guys got hurt, you know, on one side of the ball, you start to ask yourself, you know, why is that? Because we can't blame it on our field. We got a great playing surface on our field, and sometimes I think that they're out there playing a little tired, you know, and so getting put back out on the field, not necessarily the number of plays, but how often you go sit down for 3 plays and you're back in. And so you can kind of get that. So I don't know. We'll do a little bit of a study this spring on that, why we think we had so many guys get hurt, you know, and how quickly they were going back in the game. And we try to rotate guys on the defensive line and backers and everywhere, but we had way more injuries than we've had in the last couple of years. So,
what's kind of the status of Parker?
I don't know. I can't really talk about it.
Have you had a conversation with him?
No, that's a decision, and that's a conversation for Doc Murphy and the family, and then it'll come to me. You know, I'm going to completely stay out of that because my opinion really doesn't matter one way or the other. So I think that Doc Murphy has probably the most be able to help with the decision making and what goes on from here. But ultimately, it's Parker and the family's decision, and I'm going to stay out of that. I'm going to support whatever happens, but I really don't even want to talk about that. You know, I don't want to voice my opinion one way or another because I don't think it's fair one way or another. I'm just going to say I'm a daddy first.
With the off season here, I know it's only a couple days old. What are the plans as far as, you know, like I said, I know it's Thanksgiving week, but have you made plans really with respect to like talking about contract extension and then I guess just other things related to the off season?
No, I haven't talked to anybody. We'll talk about that later. I mean, I haven't even thought about it, to tell you the truth. And I know we'll get together after Thanksgiving, me and Bruce and probably Dr. Coquel, and we'll talk through some things that, you know, contractual, whatever, but it's way too early. But I mean, I know it's coming up. I mean, I signed a 3-year contract in December, but I'll talk to them later about that.